Hello everyone, this is H the Husky here, and I'm going to be casting the second game between tQState spawning down here in the bottom left side. He is going to be your red Protoss, and in the top right side is going to be the green Protoss. It is EG.IdrA. Most people know him. I have been watching his live stream lately, and he is easily one of the best, if not the best players on the North American server right now. He was going on like 20 game winning streaks, just completely tearing it up on the ladder. So phenomenal play from him that we've seen, and really we saw, whoa, excuse me, my mouse having a little fun adventure through the map on its own will. Anyways, we saw a State go for that 4-gate last game, which is something you almost never see versus Zerg anymore, just because they know how to hold it off. I mean, you saw IdrA respond almost perfectly. Yeah, he did lose a couple of drones there to that stray Zealot later, but he knew that if he just holds on and survives, that essentially you're going to be just fine going into the late game, because, or at least going into the mid game, because even if you lose some drones, we saw him get behind on the drone count there. Even if that happens, you already know that your opponent can't put on a lot of pressure anymore because he's so far behind in tech that I mean, you just drone up and then you're caught right back up to where you want to be and you're in good shape. So the map is Crossfire, which this map is a very tall map, so it's kind of like me, I guess, in real life, although a lot of people tell me I'm tall. I'm only 6'1", which isn't that tall. Anyways, there are so many different ways to get to your opponent's base. It's kind of like a maze. So one important location is this high ground. It's not as important in Protoss versus Zerg as it is, say, in a Terran versus Zerg because of siege tanks. But this high ground you want to keep in your control if possible, just because it's so dangerously close to your expansion that you need to make sure to hold on to that. And right now we do have this drone, or the second drone now, coming down here to engage this probe who's already been punched in the face enough times to get rid of his shield. So I don't know if he's going to be able to set up a pylon or not to delay this. But IdrA doesn't even have enough money for a hatchery quite yet. So he's doing this perfectly, where he gets his spawning pool first and doesn't want to lose to any sort of proxy or any sort of getting pylon blocked or anything like that at the expansion. So he does have his spawning pool first, which will allow him to get out some Zerglings should he decide to. And he's also starting his queen as well as some Zerglings. So he's not going spawning pool right into a hatchery. He's instead getting those more basic units up for the map control as well as the inject larva from that queen. The drone's going to scoot on in here, which is pretty standard for the scouting timing on the Zerg player, able to see exactly what is going on, which, I mean, as a Protoss player, you can't really hide anything super sneaky in your main right out of the gate, because most Zerg players are starting to scout now. If you think back to StarCraft 1, a lot of players, most players, did not scout with a drone, just because every drone was so crucial that if you scouted out, it would hurt you too much. But in StarCraft 2, just how the economy works and all of that is Zerg players are encouraged to scout with a drone, because Zerg players have to react to exactly what is headed their way, and if they don't scout with that drone, then a lot of times they get taken by surprise. Like if IdrA did not scout with that drone and scout that 4-gate, he may not have been prepared. He almost undoubtedly would not have been prepared for that 4-gate. So that is why scouting is super crucial and super important. And also denying scouting is really important. That was one fault of State last game, is he allowed that drone to scout the 4-gate, and that is a big no-no when trying to deal with scouting workers right there. I do like how State threw down his gateways on this side while the drone was over here, so this drone has no idea of what is headed to the Zerg's base. And I mean, IdrA can assume there's going to be a minimum of 3 gateways. That's just kind of the standard schmandard for Protoss versus Zerg. A minimum of 3 gateways and a maximum of 5. There have been some timing windows where I've seen 5 gates used. It's very peculiar and is not good in the long run because you've wasted a lot of minerals on it. But that's just kind of the range. The extreme being 5 and the more common being 3. So he should be just fine. A pylon going down for State right now, which says to IdrA, well, he's probably going to be expanding right now. So that is going to go down down there. And one thing you can do is cancel the Nexus right before it's about to finish and hide a 4th gateway. However, I don't know that State is going to attempt that, simply because we saw how one-sided his 4-gate was last game. And I don't know if he meant to get that little gas, because he stopped making Stalkers at a time when Stalkers would have been really good. So I don't know what that was about. But for now, we do have some units moving out here. This is just to put pressure on the Zerg player a little bit, make him go a tiny bit uneasy. You can see that EG.IdrA reacts accordingly. He is going to get a Spine Crawler as well as 10 Zerglings. This is completely standard. EG.IdrA has in the past, which I think... Oh, no, I didn't realize these Zerglings got by. So only 1 or 2 workers now killed. I didn't realize that many had run by. Should be able to force field the Ram to prevent them from escaping, but this is so frustrating. Speedlings drive any Protoss player mad, which is exactly what you are witnessing right now. Another pro will go down. Nice focus firing by EG.IdrA. And no, trying to chase it around the geyser, ring around the geyser. Thankfully for him, all of them survive. More Zerglings now in the main base. Oh man, EG.IdrA really getting lucky here, running these all the way down, and the Stalker's even opting to shoot the own probes, so this is not a good situation for State to be in. He's trying to move his probes around to engage. Oh, it runs them in there as well, transferring them down, and the damage being dealt here pretty heavy. 6 workers killed now by EG.IdrA in that engagement. Gotta try and take out 1 more. He will get it, so that's 7. Zergling's still up and around, having so much fun running inside the main base. We're talking about a cool hiding spot if you're a Zergling right there. Pretty sexy time. And it looks like EG.IdrA is so confident here. He's just going to keep making Zerglings to try and end this. He realizes, I have so many units, I could probably just surround this Protoss army and end this game right now. However, this army does look pretty good. Needs a force field there. Is not going to get it. EG.IdrA wisely going to back out here. No matter how good your micro is, you have to be careful running into a superior army. And if we do look at the unit tab here, 36 drones to 32 probes. So EG.IdrA, after killing those, is going to have a nice little comfortable lead. I mean, he is behind in the supply counts, but that is not going to be that big of a deal. And yeah, so EG.IdrA is going to be in pretty good shape here. I don't know, yeah, the timing of his lair is right around the 9-minute mark, which a Zerg player typically will expand at about the 10-minute mark in a standard game. But on this map, it can be very different because the third base, look at how far away this third base is. Look at the mini-map. This is such a long trek. You have to go down the Oregon Trail and back before you've traveled the length of that expansion positioning. But more Zerglings over here constantly peeking in. EG.IdrA just needs to be careful. And some force fields could trap it. Will cut him in half as EG.IdrA did have it put on hold position. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 force fields only to kill a handful of Zerglings. Probably not worth it in the long run. EG.IdrA has lost more units, but it's really only been Zerglings. I think he only lost that scouting worker, yeah. So the whole goal of this kind of build is just to do as much worker harass as possible, keep your opponent in your base as long as possible, while you decide as the Zerg player what to do. Are you going to follow it up with mass roaches to try and end it, or are you going to tech up like crazy or just drone like crazy? Really, it's up to the Zerg player at that point what to do. The Protoss player usually is just going to stick with his build in this situation, try and get out as many units as he can, and try and figure out when the best time to move out with your whole army is. And I think that's what he tried to do before, but kind of got punished for it quite heavily with those counter-attacking Zerglings. So right now we do have an infestation pit on the way for EG.IdrA. Third base going down at around the 10-minute mark. It's about 3/4 done. Oh, 3/4 done. That is not correct. 1/3 done. Now nearly halfway done. And the Observer is spotting everything that's going on. It sees a lot of roaches, which queues up the Chrono Boost on these Immortals. 2 cannons go down. 1 gets canceled by State, and he's basically doing this in a defensive posture as he realizes EG.IdrA is not even giving him the courtesy of long games. He is instead just trying to end them right away. We do have Overlord speed done. We do not have Overlord drop researching, though, so we won't see any sort of Roach or Hydra drop, which we have seen used quite effectively in the past. And Overseer here will be able to spot the Observer, so definitely need to be careful in that regard. And our Protoss player is going to move out here, which this map very, very good for Zerg players trying to counterattack and run around and things like that. So will force the cancel on the pylon and then run away with those Zerglings. EG.IdrA doing everything he possibly can with these Zerglings, making them extremely cost effective. +1 attack going to be wrapping up here for our Protoss player, as we do have +1 range on the way for Zerg. And we do have pathogen glands on the way. So the tech of choice is going to be infestors here, and for EG.IdrA, which fungal growth on these units, so powerful, especially against the Stalkers, taking additional damage from that, which is not a pretty situation to be in if you are a Protoss player. Now, EG.IdrA is known for crazy amounts of macro, and this game is going into a macro game. So IdrA's going to be getting more and more comfortable. I feel like he's just getting a back massage this entire time, and that's what he's more focused on, just because this is his home territory, this is where he's comfortable, and this is where things start to get scary. Now, he's actually getting Neural Parasite very early. This shows you the confidence of EG.IdrA versus this player. Neural Parasite this early when he's not really going to be going against that many Colossus is very amusing to me. And sorry, I'm actually casting these games on my floor, and I have my mouse pad set kind of at an angle, so if my mouse ever freaks out and slides away, that is why I am getting kicked out of my apartment. No, I'm not getting kicked out of my apartment, but today's the last day I can be in my apartment, so I'm hoping they don't tell me I have to leave quite yet, because this is the only thing left in my apartment is my computer, and so I'm trying to cast while sitting on the floor, which is not easy. A big risk by State here, going to be taking a high-yield expansion. I like that play from him, just because, I mean, he's going against EG.IdrA, man. He's like one of the best players on the North American server, so you got to watch out. So many roaches right now for EG.IdrA. I have lost to this as a Protoss player so many times, so we'll see if State has the answer, which right now the army size 165 to 148. Got to remember that. Roaches. Oh, Fungal Growth, they got to trap these units. No roaches there to finish it off, but will instead run down here. And EG.IdRA's like, well, you took a big risk, and I'm going to punish you for it. Intercept some Stalkers as well. More Fungal Growth's got to be going down on this entire army, especially on the sentries, preventing them from getting away. These force fields just making it hard for the roaches to navigate, which is doing a surprising amount of damage. One more force field could have trapped those units, but it looks like State may be okay here. But there is 14 more roaches on the way, and they keep using that burrow, which with their regeneration, it doesn't even matter that they're taking damage as they just regenerate that health. Look at how fast roaches are, man, when they have that speed upgrade. They are booking it out of there. Move speed of 3. Those things are so speedy compared to the Stalker is able to escape there quite easily, which is pretty funny considering that it is going to be those roaches. Just pretty crazy there, as the move speed is slightly less for the Stalkers, 2.95. Looks like these roaches just kind of directly run in here, try and focus down the Colossus. They do not have what it takes, though, and will get locked down there. Units lost, heavily favoring our Protoss player. He was able to do a lot of damage here, but can he follow it up correctly? Which, considering he does have a high-yield expansion here, should be okay. Units tab, though, is showing 27 roaches for EG.IdrA. This is just showing you the macro power of a Zerg player. 71 drones able to crank these out quite easily, so roaches going to be running here. More nice force fields, trapping a lot of these units. The infestors need to get out of there. Will use Neural Parasite on what looks like an Immortal, and I am guessing EG.IdrA just left the game. This is before the newest patch, so it doesn't say if they have left the game, but I'm assuming that EG.IdrA left the game without saying GG, unless it was a disconnect, but I really don't think it was, simply because, number one, he misclicked and took the Immortal when I think he wanted to take that Colossus for the splash damage, and number two, he just straight up lost in a macro game. There was no crazy cheesiness going on. The only thing that was kind of weird is taking the high-yield expansion, but it really paid off, and the Protoss player able to take this game, so quite a surprise out there. So it is now tied 1-1 moving forward into the third game. So very interesting play from our Protoss player, and he did have the answer to that mass roach and infestor. So here we go on to the next game right now.